Briefly starting on the ERP side, just to kind of set the table from a navigational standpoint, right? You can always access NSPB from the ERP side of the house. Just come down, access NSPB. You're linked out to a new tab for that work. Our application, as you can see, looks quite a bit different. It's more like an iOS device, kind of like our home screen app icons here. Today, we're mainly going to focus on workforce budgeting, Opex budgeting, revenue and gross margin planning. I'll show some of those, financial statement views. So if I open up our financials folder, you can kind of see those. We also have this balance sheet trending form that allows you to kind of do some working capital planning. If you want to adjust, DSO, DPO averages, kind of true up your balance sheet and cash flow forecasts. You can do things like add cash plugs or loans and things like that to your balance sheet via this entry form. So again, all the updates, and it's kind of important to note that as I make updates for our workforce budget, it's updating those values everywhere in the tool. All right. So as we look at workforce, if I adjust the comp for some folks on our sales department, it's automatically adjusting those budgetary values for the sales department on our Opex sheet on the appropriate GL values. So everything you do in this tool is interconnected. That's kind of the beauty of it, right? You get your payroll data set in here. You have your NetSuite data set in here. Once they're both in here, you can kind of pivot them alongside each other for planning purposes. So then I'll show some variance metrics and some of those, some dashboards, PDF reports, and then we'll wrap up with SmartView. But let's start in workforce budgeting. And again, this is just meant to be an example of some common data points we'll see mapped in from an HR or payroll system. All these forms that we look at, they're extremely configurable. So very easy for us to, add more columns in here. If you see a data point or you don't see a data point that you would like to map in, that's just part of the design of the tool. But you'll always have your point of view up top, and then we'll see this pretty much everywhere in the tool. And this is where you control the dimensionality that you're looking at, right? And again, what can expose really any dimension that you may want to pivot on. So you'll have these pre-built forms. Everything that I'm showing today is how it comes out of the box with the Suite Success methodology that I'm sure you've heard about on the ERP side. So this is really your starting point. And then we'll work with you to make sure we're exposing all dimensions you may want to look at. But initially, maybe it's just a subsidiary, maybe for you guys, location, right? I could just look at our employee roster by location. I can look at the admin team, or I can hop between different courses, whatever it may be. We also have some pre-built views along the bottom. We have a pre-built department, breakout. I can click into that department roster view that puts our department dimension in the point of view, right? I kind of hop between those. One thing I will note, we don't currently see scenario or version. Our demo team just hasn't, actually the main demo account I usually use is getting some maintenance this week. So I'm using a secondary account. The main account does have scenario and version exposed everywhere, and that is pretty common for our customers. I just wanted to highlight it so that as we're thinking about making changes to pay rates and things like that, or changing overtime bonus raise structures, working on the plan that you want to work on is really as simple as having it in that point of view. And I have an example just to kind of show what it looks like. So it'll likely look like this kind of across the board, where you can kind of just open it up, pick which plan type you want to work on or make adjustments to, and what plan you're working on based on that point of view up top.
Okay.
So with that in mind, right, I can look at Eric Ackberry. If I want to run a what if model, or, what if he leaves the company end of the month, all I have to do is just make that entry, hit save. The system will take his cost center off the budget according to any term date you enter there. This is also kind of showing more of a transition of roles for Eric, where, maybe he terms and, October 16th, and then he's going to start that admin role after that, right? So you can also indicate transitions here, or even, department splits. This is kind of showing both options at once, where, maybe I want to split Eric's cost center 50-50 across two different departments or two different locations, right? It can be any dimension. All I have to do is adjust that percentage entry over here, hit save, and again, it's automatically adjusting that budget math for us on our Opex sheet.
Yep.
But again, right, pay rate's critical. I can run what ifs there. I can run what ifs around, there's all these kind of annual structures that we see over here. Create a what if plan where bonus structure is X for leadership team. What if plan number 2 where it's Y. That's kind of the idea. In addition to all these kind of, surface level metrics that you can adjust, we also have some left-hand tab navigation. And anytime you see this hammer or wrench icon like you see over here, that's kind of your visual indicator of where you can enter underlying assumptions or drivers for the model you're currently in. So if we click in there for the workforce budget, we'll see annual assumptions that we can, again, adjust year over year. And if you wanted to add more columns to do like a detailed, 3 or 5 year plan, by all means. But kind of those behind the scenes calculations, 401k match percentages and caps, FICA, FUTA, SUTA maxes and percentages. This merit month, this is indicating for those bonus and raise structures that you just baked in, when you want those to post to the budget from a time perspective, right? So I could switch to more of a mid-year approach next year, just hit save. Again, it's automatically adjusting the timing of that math for us on our Opex sheet.
Okay. And so, again, you could go location by location, right, for this?
Yeah, great point. The forms can look different as you navigate dimensions, right? So like in this example, it's more of like subsidiaries, right? But like if we're looking at this and, if we go to like our UK office as an example, they may have different assumptions mapping in there. So yeah, as you navigate the dimension structures, the form can completely, look different.
Okay, great.
So some customers will have that, like if you want to have like domestic state level tax rates in here and just have like a flip between state option, like that's common.
Okay, great.
Yep. Other couple views here that I'll show real quick. Like there's a monthly assumptions view, like maybe for your benefit plans, right? You can have cost month over month. Maybe I want to run a what if where we go with a different provider next year, right? Just kind of an arbitrary change here. This is the first kind of traditional budgetary view that we've seen so far. But, I can make that change for next year just for that plan type. It's only going to adjust that budget math for the employees that are, subscribed to that plan currently. So that's kind of the idea. You can also do some pay scheduling, maybe for like your hourly employees, right? You can have assumptions around, work days, work weeks, pay periods in a given month. What if we go to bi-monthly, that kind of thing. You can start to kind of see how that may look from a financials perspective. And if there are any other, assumptions or drivers that you need us to build here, we can build other entry, input forms for you. Not a ton of work there to do that.
Okay.
And then before I get back, I'll show like layering in new hires in a second, but we also have this middle tab. This is more of an output really, but it's useful for a lot of our customers. Like say I do all this budgetary work. Maybe I just want to get like almost like a P&L style view of just these workforce cost center metrics, right? So I can come in here, this report will come out of the box, and there's obviously a lot of different ways you can like slice and dice it. I can break this out by location, department, scenario version, all that good stuff. But, at a starting point, I could just see, hey, what's our total comp month over month for all of our folks? I can use dimensions to slice and dice it. I can also just add a little cascade button here. And this is a big file, so it's going to have me do some scrolling. So sorry for that. But if I click that cascade button once, I'll get a breakout of our existing folks. And then I'll see, for the new hires that we've layered in, which I'll show next, I'll get a breakout for those folks, obviously just looking at next year in that case. But I can also hit that, click that, even a step further on our existing employees at least, and just click it again. And again, I'm going to have to scroll a bit. Yeah, a lot of employees. Scroll back to the top of our alphabet, and I can get like an individual employee comp package view here. So yeah. Again, this is your starting point, right? You can create dashboards and visuals off of data points like this if you want, right? Maybe just look at your highest paid folks, hop between scenarios you've worked on, see how that may change their comp package month over month, things like that. And then kind of a quick note here for anything that you're doing in the web application, whether it's, this is more of a report, it could be a planning form as well. You'll always have a shortcut where, hey, maybe I want to open this exact file format in Excel and do some slicing and dicing in SmartView there, or maybe create some Excel-based visuals like I talked about a minute ago. You just always have this shortcut option where I can just, download this into Excel and start doing some slicing and dicing there as well. And that applies, again, across the board anywhere in the tool you can do that.
Okay. So like on the assumptions tab that you're showing me with the different locations, how does that link back to where all the calculations are coming through? Is that something that, if this is going to be something that we have to build for every location, how do I go back and incorporate that into where the, the FUTA or FICA tax rates are actually being calculated?
You mean like from an actuals perspective?
Yeah. So like when you're going through and putting in, the salaries and the people's names and all that good stuff, obviously the FUTA, FICA, SUTA, whatever is going to calculate off of the salary. But how do I, thinking in Excel, like I would be like, okay, take the salary times the percentage or whatever to get my total. How am I telling this software to do that? Or is it somehow picking it up automatically, or how's that all?
Yeah, it's picking it up. So like these cells that we're looking at here, they're
Mhm.
tied to those salary cells that are on the roster view. So
Okay.
as I make adjustments here, it's still going to read off that same salary data point and then just change kind of the output from a financials perspective where needed.
Okay. So is it something that comes pre-built that way? Like if
Yeah.
we have like so we can't delete 401k company match, right? Like that line, it could be zero, but it has to stay there.
Yeah, I mean, you could remove it. I'd say
No,
it's more common just to kind of zero it out.
yeah.
But yeah, if you want to be like, we'll do some training when we implement the tool and like how to adjust these forms yourself. Like you're not
Mhm.
locked into how we set it up
Okay.
necessarily.
Yeah.
But yeah, the
Okay. I
more
was just
common
thinking
just to kind of
if
zero.
we added, something else, I can't think of anything of what it would be. It looks like all the tax rates and the company, the benefits and things are there.
Yeah.
Um, but if we added something like if it's sitting here, how is it going back, tying to whatever criteria it needs to tie to if it's salary or whatever. Um, I'm assuming there's just some sort of like mapping to it, but
Yeah, that's getting a little bit kind of beyond my expertise, to be honest with you. It's a little
okay.
bit kind of just like the back end. Like you can open this up and look at like rules and like I think it's like in this rules and smart push where like you can create dependencies. Like, hey, this 401k match needs to be a derivative of like the salary data point coming from
Okay.
payroll.
Yeah,
So that's
that's what
just
I
yeah, it's just like a little bit back end work. It doesn't require like coding or anything. Like that's something we could definitely train you on to adjust yourself after go live.
okay.
But yeah, just a little bit more kind of back end stuff there.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
All right, let's round out workforce budgeting. Again, just keep it going on the clock. Let's look at like new hire planning. Pretty straightforward, but I like to show it. So again, just to reiterate, you can do all this at that scenario level, version level, right? So I could have a best case hire plan, worst case new hire plan, all that good stuff. But the form itself is really straightforward. It's essentially going to be all the same data points that you capture for your existing folks. But really, this form is going to require two entries at a minimum. When is this person going to start working for you? And again, also mid-month next week. And what are you going to pay them? So that's kind of the minimum, right? I can bake in obviously as much detail as I want beyond that, but just by hitting save with those entries I made, it's just telling the system, hey, we need to add this salary to our cost center budget according to whatever date we set it, right? So even if I set the hire date to be like midweek, mid-pay period, it'll take care of that initial proration math and then resume normal budget activity after that.
Okay.
Now, if you want some additional automation around like, hey, once I actually hire this person, I want like a little flag to take them off this list so I'm not double budgeting. That's pretty common. In that case, we'll typically see a customer map in like another column here next to job title with like a job rec code or an employee ID number. That way, if there's like a duplicate there, you'll get a little flag like, hey, you need to remove one kind of thing.
Okay.
All right. And then lastly, just want to show this employee status form. This is another kind of an alternative method to do departure planning or even, just temporary leave planning more pertinently here. So any like, just to be clear, like that term date entry that I showed to start, like that would carry over here if I were to, enter a date there. But like a lot of our customers will use this for like, hey, Connor Avery's going on parental leave for the fall or something like that. I can just mark him as like temporary leave of absence, maybe for a month or two. And again, if I just hit save with that adjustment, it's just going to take them off the budget for those months and then, resume normal budget activity after that. So again, just another method. You can also just, like it says here, do a departure. And again, I just want to drag that out for the rest of the budget cycle. So this is just another way I can model that. All I have to do is hit save. Cool. Any other questions on workforce budgeting before we look at OpEx?
No.
All right. Now, I've mentioned a couple times how all this work we've done so far, it's all translating to our OpEx budget in real time as you make adjustments. So that's going to be kind of our starting point as I look at this view now. This is obviously a more traditional view. We have just a couple dimensions up here. I imagine, again, you'll have at least two or three more. We see version. We'll have scenario up here. Maybe instead of subsidiary, you have like a location up here. Also not uncommon to have like a vendor tag if you ever want to budget down to a specific vendor you work with or something like that. So again, just use the point of view to essentially get to the intersection of actuals that you want to see, aka the level of detail you're planning off of for this kind of more of a trend-based approach. But as a starting point, all of these values in our budget kind of roll forward period. We have 8 months of actuals, about 16 months of budget here. as a starting point, all these values will reflect all that work that we've done in the workforce budgeting tool, at least for these payroll accounts typically, probably not for all of them. And then obviously you can make manual adjustments, right? If I just wanted to, what are we on? Payroll taxes, if I just want to increase that by about, 17K or so, I can just enter that uptick. It's always going to colorize values that are being impacted by, changes you're making. So in this case, taking that uptick, proportionally spreading it to the periods left in our budget cycle. I can hit save, but I can always right click on our budget cells. I can get a real-time audit trail, see who's, I guess no one's changed that one. See what users making changes and when. I'm not sure if anyone's been making changes, but it would give you a real-time log of, hey, user made a change this time, what the old value was, what the new value was. So you get that kind of real-time log. You can run that log a lot of different ways. Like you can always run it down to like a single budget value, like I just did, but we also have an entire audit section. So maybe for you, maybe I want to get a comprehensive report. I want to see every change that, Mitch has made over the last month or the last quarter, just maybe as an example, right? So you can do that, or maybe even just audit yourself, right? I want to track all my own changes.
Yep.
So you always have those abilities. You can kind of pick and choose what level of detail you're looking at those for. And then obviously, with your actuals coming in every day, the planning view will update as you close periods. We'll set the view to be whatever you want, right? It doesn't have to be 8 and 16. It could be 3 and 19. Wait, that doesn't 3 and 21. Yeah, there we go. So again, we'll kind of make sure you can see however much actuals you want to see.
Yeah.
And then we have these are the out of the box methodologies that just come, with the Suite Success model right off the bat. I can use different monthly rolling averages. Maybe I'm creating a new scenario where I prefer to just use the prior year actuals and do an increase instead of a decrease, right? Just kind of show you don't have to do it account by account if you don't want. I can kind of just drag and drop here.
Yeah, so I think Sean, kind of what you're saying right now, this is how we budget.
Yep.
More or less right now. What we're doing, and it's not great. Like in theory, it's this, right? The behind the scenes how it works is not this. So I've built a budget template. It's all in Excel. It's got, 6 or 7 different tabs, and for different scenarios for membership, which I haven't talked about revenue and things, but operating expenses. Other than the payroll, I built a payroll tab that kind of does what you showed me already, where it has the employee name, their salary or their hourly rate, how many hours they're working. I just did it per month. So if it's 40 or hours per week for each month. So if it's 40, you just type in a 40 or whatever, and it calculates the payroll taxes based off of another tab, very similar to what you showed. For operating expenses, I've got it pulling 3 years of historical information out of our accounting software right now. And then they use that not necessarily on like salaries and wages, but on things like utilities, right? Like down there in the 6400s, or repairs and maintenance for, whatever department it is. I just give them their actuals for the last 3 years. I hit a drop down box and they can see what it was by month. So basically what you're doing here, or what you could do here, is just put in your prior year actuals. And it would pull in from the accounting software what it was for each GL account. And then if you wanted to do an increase by just straight across the board by month, you could say, okay, increase it by 5% each, and it would increase by 5% each month. Or you can just go into a single cell, for May, and increase it to any number you want.
Yep.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. And like even beyond that, like if I were to just increase, maybe I just want to increase September as an example, or like you just said, not only can you do that, but I also, I show the audit trail, but you also can add like commentary behind the number. You'll have a little flag in the corner if there's a comment. So you can say, hey, increasing September because of XYZ. You also can add like a line item breakout. So, say enter 4K there. It's 4 different 1K line items. So it's not going to reference a transaction, obviously, because it's a budgetary figure. But if I want to have like a little bit more of like a breakout of what's composing that number, you can enter that here. You can also enter file attachments to these cells, right? So a lot of cool functions here. You also, as you're making adjustments kind of on the fly, like maybe what's the last one? Other benefits, kind of generically named. I can also just like lock September, and then maybe let's uptick it, and keep September static, and just gonna spread that to the non-locked periods. You can lock entire rows out if you want, so a lot of controls in here, right? So it sounds like it'll make your life a little bit easier. And then again, getting all to that kind of departmental level, just use your dimensions, right? So I always can, if I want to just plan this at a total department level, I can always zoom out and do that. All the changes I'm making at the lower levels, they all roll up in real time as you save adjustments.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This, I mean, this is our budget template right here. It's just automated. That's great. Okay.
Yep. And then I mentioned this earlier, or I guess in the beginning, but in addition to those, so this is like those methodologies that I showed, sounds like this is kind of close to how you do it, which is good. These will come out of the box, but we also can, if you have like different formulas that you want to leverage, like some customers will say, hey, like XYZ account, we like to do a percentage of revenue as a budget driver or something like that. You can reference other financial accounts. Maybe I want to do just like FTE headcount entry times an assumed rate. And I just pick that. And instead of entering a percentage, I just enter the headcount number. So there are a lot of options, right? You can we can help build those to get you kicked off, or you can kind of create those yourself after go live as well if you ever find yourself wanting to do that. But
okay, cool. Yeah.
yeah. And then I did mention this. We also have a predictive planning. So this is, again, you can use it or you don't, but with AI being kind of the buzzword recently, I like to kind of at least briefly show it's more machine learning than AI. But this is a tool you can use really anywhere in the application. We're going to look at it just like a product sales forecast, but you can use it back on that Opex sheet, right? I'll just look at our product sales for this fictional modem product. I'll hit predictive planning. What's nice about this is, you said you use like 3 years of actuals. Assuming we get that data into this tool, which is an option for you. If I hit this predictive plan, it'll reach back as far as it can for whatever data set you run it on. So in this case, it's about 4 years of sales velocity for this modem product, but this could be 3 years of actuals for an expense line, right? And then it'll plot the seasonality of all those actuals. And then on the roll forward portion of our graph, it'll plot whatever you dictate as your main plan version alongside the predicted values, right? So kind of a nice sanity check, if nothing else. I can run the prediction. I could say, hey, we're forecasting 6% growth for this revenue stream. System's recommending almost double that. So now having seen that, if you want to adjust your values at all, you can actually just, drag and drop on the graph here. You can see it's impacting our values in the form. We're inching a little bit closer to that predictive rate. So I understand maybe not something that you'll trust in year one, but some, you can run this prediction, save it off as its own scenario or version. Maybe at end of the year, I run a variance report, see how accurate it wound up being. If it was pretty accurate, maybe I start to adopt some of those values as part of the process. So, and then also there's cool tools like you can control like what date ranges it's consuming to actually create the prediction. So, if I want to omit a certain period or, maybe just do a 1 year prediction off of the previous year's data, right? You have some options there as well. So I'd like to show that real quick, kind of a nice to have feature.
It's cool.
All right. So for revenue planning, kind of shifting gears a little bit here, I want to make sure I'm giving enough time for Smart View at the end. Honestly, revenue planning kind of typically where we see the most nuance customer to customer in terms of how we'll set up the forms. We have kind of 2 methods that I can show right off the bat. Again, this is out of the box, so maybe some slight tweaks we can accommodate this. I'd imagine most of your revenue is service revenue. Do you guys sell products at all?
Yeah, I mean, well, merchandise.
Merch, yeah.
Yeah, golf balls, shirts,
Okay.
things like that, food and beverage.
Okay.
But most of it's, service-based green fees, lessons, range balls, things like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Memberships are the biggest ones that are private clubs. Green fees, obviously, the biggest at public.
Okay. Yeah. So I imagine your customer here will probably be different clubs that you work with, right? So that'll be a new dimension that we haven't seen so far. Again, same idea though as what we saw in Opex, right? You're kind of just taking those historical values, creating revenue-based forecasts. Again, you could do it at a total customer level. You could do it at an individual site location. You can have all of your revenue streams kind of listed out here on the form, or you can see we have if you want to have your services or your revenue streams in the point of view, you can kind of hop between them as well, membership dues, and then we can also, this model kind of has this own tab here just for service revenue, and then we can map in your merch sales into maybe a different tab. It's still marrying from an overall, financials forecast perspective, but maybe, for our product revenue, maybe I want to do more of a price times quantity model where, hey, let's look at, and again, this is more of a tech focused hardware example, but, at XYZ course, how many beverages, how many balls have we sold or things like that. So this is kind of, step one for product revenue where, hey, I can create a forecast based off of how many units we've historically sold for all these products we're selling. And then I can also go next step further just with this product stuff where I can do some modeling around the price and cost assumptions. So we'll pull in like the average price at an item level and average cost at an item level. That's actually going to be a dynamic number that is coming from the ERP tool and will update every day as that may change. So again, I could still just make adjustments here if I wanted to, but also I could pre-bake in maybe alternate prices that we use at certain times of the year. Again, at an item level for the products, I can say, hey, what did our financial forecast look like if on these ball sets we offer like a discount for the holidays, something like that, right?
Yep.
And just to reiterate, right, you can do all this at that scenario and version level. I can create what if, best case, we're able to raise prices on some of the products, lower costs, worst case, prices go down or remain stagnant, that kind of idea. And just to kind of round that out, same idea on the cost side, right? For all your products, we'll pull in that average cost that will update daily, and then I can make adjustments kind of month by month to the cost assumption as well. So again, that's the idea, right? You can kind of do all that work for your products. You can do the service-based forecasts. I can kind of look at a total revenue perspective as well. It's kind of the last tab here, or maybe I want to do some gross margin assumption planning. So again, maybe something for like, instead of entering all the price and cost assumptions, I just want to, hey, what if, our margin on certain products goes down or goes up a little bit? How does that work? So I guess, this is, again, your starting point, but overall thoughts here, do you think with some tweaks on the dimensionality and inputs, this would be effective?
Yeah. I mean, we don't get so far into the weeds on like our merchandise. It's kind of just one
Yeah.
line, and we don't need to know because there's hundreds and hundreds of different products that can go through a golf shop, right?
Yeah.
Mats, clubs, shirts, whatever. But thinking of it in terms of green fees and membership types, I think that we could just kind of label those as items. And then,
Yeah, I mean, and we could use the price times quantity method for like memberships too. If you want to say, hey, I want to enter how many members we expect, I want to run a what if we start charging a little bit more for memberships, like things like that. You can apply that to the service.
Yeah, and that's exactly kind of what we do now. We just don't have the what if,
Yeah.
just because it's so Excel based, like trying to tell which cell to pull. Excel can't read someone's mind like this sort of can, right? So
yeah, I hear you. I mean, it'll be as simple as just using that point of view drop down to navigate, the level of detail you're changing.
So I guess let me ask this. Obviously, this is a very sophisticated budget tool. What does the budget tool look like in Mac? I don't know if this is a question for you or Dennis. What does the budget tool look like if we don't add this on and we just use the basic NetSuite package? How are we budgeting that way?
So native budgeting in the ERP solution, it's honestly, it's pretty limited. There's no workforce budgeting whatsoever in that. Really, you're kind of limited to like, you can still take you can create like a trend-based forecast or budget off of your actuals. But in terms of like multi-scenarios, multi-versions, can't really do that. Now you can like if you want to select a version or scenario from this tool to kind of import back into ERP, just if you want to have like some quick variance dashboards there for non-users of this tool, things like that. Like that's pretty easy. But yeah, in terms of like all the versioning and scenario modeling, and again, the workforce is a big piece of it as well. All that is only available here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay.
All right. So yeah, we got plenty of time. Let's look at reports. So we've seen the budget work, right? We've seen some of the revenue work. Let's take a look at just to start like one of our cash flow report, one of our financial statement views here. To start, this is going to be like the most basic view that we'll see. It's just a web form, right? But it's going to be a great kind of transition of our actuals into our forecast work. Apply your scenarios and versions here, right? Any other dimensionality you may need. You can obviously, like I said earlier, open this up in Smart View and do some manipulation there, which I actually will do in a minute. But this is kind of, your starting point, right? You'll have this view auto refreshing every day for all these financial statement perspectives. But if we go to our analytics tab, reporting analytics, we'll see those same three. I'll go back to those dashboards in a second. We'll see those same three views, right? So our same three kind of core financial statements here. I guess this I don't know where the data went, but this is like if I wanted to do some additional formatting, right? Maybe add like the landscape, logo in here. You can actually layer like I'll show the dashboards next, but like you can layer visuals and dashboards onto packages. Actually, this isn't working, but I have a better example that I built myself that I'll show. But just like even as it's living in the application, right? I can still like slice and dice in real time. So if I want to have a nice handsome P&L, I can still hop between our locations or courses in real time. Let me actually bring up the example. I hate seeing like null bad reports like this. So this is kind of more like the art of the possible. I built this in SPB a couple of years ago. This is like kind of showing how much formatting you could do.
Yeah.
This is a 128-page book report. This is something that you can kind of set and forget to go out every month, every quarter to, again, whoever needs to see it, just give them an email. Nice cover sheet, nice table of contents. And this is kind of, again, still giving me a timestamp of who ran it and when. This is kind of showing an alternate approach where instead of like using the point of view bar to kind of flip between dimensions, this is the same report, at least to start, page over page. This is by department, but maybe like revenue analysis by course or by location would be more pertinent for you guys. I can kind of have that same report, split out for every course, every customer, page over page. So again, this is kind of like what you can start to automate. We'll help you set up the packages you want as part of implementing the tool, but also, modifying these, creating new ones yourself after go live is extremely easy. Requires no coding or anything like that. It's entirely designed to be owned by finance users. So it's all just managed in our web reporting studio. So I'm not going to get into it, but just access it here. You get a little pop-up where you can kind of do some dragging and dropping, drag some dashboards and things like that onto those. So those are pretty easy to maintain. Just to kind of tease what some of those visuals can look like. I tend to not spend a ton of time on dashboards just because the ERP product is really strong at dashboards. The value of having them here, they're still drillable, right? I can still kind of modify these on the fly as I may want, if I want like different, chart types and stuff. But the value of having these is that I can like hop between scenarios I've worked on and maybe just see how some critical KPIs change in real time, right? So if I want to do like best case, worst case analysis for revenue by site location or something like that, or Opex, right? You can kind of have some of those live here. You can start to populate these onto those reporting packages and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Tanner, between like the book report we just saw, I'm sure you guys are creating kind of those budgeting out, a lot for a lot of the courses, right? And kind of having meetings to review that and
Yep.
all the other functionality we've seen. Do you envision this like saving you guys a good amount of time and effort when you're going through these on a monthly or quarterly basis, whatever it is?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. And are you guys just pulling all that data right now? Is that all just in Excel and then you're creating graphs in there and kind of just doing all that manually? Or does
Yeah. Are talking about the book report that he
yeah.
showed?
Mhm.
We have executive summary reports that we provide to our clients, so board of directors, owners,
Mhm.
municipalities every month, and we have templates built sort of now,
Mhm.
but there's a lot of manual work of like taking screenshots, pulling it in, doing all sorts of stuff like that. So,
Yeah. And I'm sure, a report like that, some of these smaller courses who've probably never seen anything, like or at all like this before. It's probably, yeah, probably makes them feel pretty confident.
yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, happy to hear this is kind of a product that might make sense for you guys and is hitting home.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we spend a lot of time on our budgets, um, just because we're hired to manage someone else's business, right? So they want to know how we're going to manage it. So we put together a business plan,
Yep.
which is it's not huge as far as 128 pages, but it's probably a 50 page document that we'll provide them each year with, our budget, how we plan to get to those figures,
Mm-hmm.
why we landed on them. So that's where I kind of see that report that Sean just showed being very valuable too.
Yeah.
Um,
Helping to, generate even more revenue there.
yeah, and I'm like, there's quite a few people on our executive team, especially that'll nerd out on these KPIs and
Mm-hmm.
predictive models and different scenarios. I was going to ask, so we do quite a bit of market studies for different golf courses too. So these are, either potential clients or clients that want to work with us and our sister company, the construction side,
Mm-hmm.
to, they'll build the golf course, we'll manage it. So what the first step in that typically is like, okay, how much is this going to cost us? So we kind of rely on our construction company to put together some construction figures. And then like, okay, if we sold initiation fees for X amount of dollars and we sold this many of them, you know, we try to show them how we can raise the funds, whether it's through financing,
Hmm.
capital contributions from private owners or initiation fees, membership sales, whatever it may be, up to opening. And then, hey, how is this course going to perform for the first 5, 10 years after it's open, right? So what we do now is it's all in Excel. Like we live in Excel, but I think this could replace some of it. Is we come up with a realistic model, and it's based off of historical information from other golf courses that we have worked with, that are similar to this golf course that's going to be built or that we're going to take on as a managed client. So is there a way to take information from a golf course that already exists, right? That's all the information's in the accounting system. And then we're like, okay, this golf course is going to be pretty dang similar to golf course A. We think revenues might be 3% worse or 3% better. Or expenses could be this or that. Could we basically start with, hey, here's golf course A, and we want to change these numbers by 3%?
Yes. So short answer, yes. Typically how that's managed is like I went back to our revenue form and I opened up our customer dimension here just so you can see that like you can have like for those total like new courses, you can name whatever you want, right? But this could be like, new course model XYZ. You can name these, hey, I want to create a forecast. There's obviously not going to be actuals for these kind of total new customer selections, but you can still add them to the plan. And what I can do is I can go to, Abbott Inc. golf course, look at their actuals, copy them, and just paste them into the forecast for whatever course we anticipate to be similar to them. And then you can obviously kind of start to make minor adjustments once you have that copy paste function done. But that's kind of the easiest way to do it is just, hey, we think this new course is going to perform similarly to this old course. I'm going to copy the actuals from there into the forecast from, whatever we're setting up. Do you think that would work or?
Yeah. Yeah. And then to a little further. So after we have what, we realistically think is a good starting point, we adjust that. Then we come up with like an optimistic model. So that's kind of like where you can have different scenarios, and then a pessimistic, like, hey, worst case scenario, this is where you're at. This is where we think you'll probably be. If somehow we blow this thing out of the water, this is where you could end up. Right.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a huge undertaking for us right now, trying to come up with all that. But if we have a good starting point, that if it's as simple as copy paste,
Yeah, and you can have it like this is obviously kind of showing more of doing it via the point of view, but we could also build you like another form where it's just, maybe just the new customers mapped to that form. So you don't have to like hop between all these. I can just go from one form, copy, go to the new form. So like there's a lot of different ways we can set it up end of the day. But yeah, it really will be as simple as just, copy and pasting, make sure you're doing it at the appropriate level.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, and this use case specifically is, an area where the planning and budgeting tool is gonna, outperform what you get out of the box with just a core ERP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
All right. I want to make sure I'm showing Smart View quickly. Again, I think there's a lot of value, not only for yourself, but anyone else that may kind of create some analytics in Excel or anything like that. But last thing I wanted to show in the web application, I was briefly on it a minute ago, but back in our reporting section, you'll have a whole tab here kind of dedicated to variances, right? So I always be able to come in here, run our actuals to budget. This is more on, we have like the revenue accounts up here, but this could be, and also like to show this because you can have commentary fields that don't live behind a value. And you can also set data rules. So a lot of customers for variances in particular, like maybe, I don't know if you have like course managers that would need to see this at a course level or something like that. A lot of people will do it like a department head level. You could send a report like this out, maybe for a particular course for their revenue forecast, hey, you came in 13% below what we forecasted for you. I want to have a rule where anytime this is below, X amount percent, it requires commentary from someone or something like that. So again, you can have something like this on your financial statements as well at the end if you want to capture commentary there, explains why cash flow is whatever, so I wanted to show that really quickly. You also get like month over month, year-to-date perspectives all pre-built out of the box for these types of reports as well.
Cool. Yeah, I like that.
All right, at long last, Smart View. So again, I'm just going to kind of go through like a fictional report creation process here. The plugin itself is pretty straightforward. And again, reiterate, you do get training on this. So we're not just going to give you the plugin and say, hey, good luck figuring anything out. But the plugin itself will give you 2 new ribbons at the top of your Office products. Smart View is pretty much connectivity management. But this planning ad hoc menu will allow us to essentially do our manipulation to our Excel-based reports on the fly. And you can see we have all of our dimensions right in our workbook now. So, this is letting us know, this is actually, I think this is a P&L. This is showing that transition we just saw where it's, actuals moving into budget. So this row 1, this is our scenario field. So what I'm going to do to start, just click that actual designation. I'm going to hit pivot and send it up to the point of view with the rest of our dimensions. Take it off the report essentially. So now we're just looking at actuals, right? That's what the filters are telling us. I can open that up, and if I want to get back to our budget view, right, I can just go to budget and hit refresh. And now we'll see, values going into next year. But let's say today, like I'm just going to create like a kind of a random report on the fly. Like let's say we want to do some analysis for last January. What I'm going to do to start is let's just start with Q1. Just highlight those months. These kind of core 4 buttons in the top left are your slice and dice buttons, where I can keep only on the selections I just highlighted. So I'm just going to keep only there. Now we see Q1, this and next year. I'm going to keep only on this past year because we're doing analysis of last year. Again, keep only. I could also remove only if I want to just click February, hit remove only, get that out of there. But so I'm not making too cumbersome of a report here. Let's just focus on January. And then, let's look at a couple different scenarios we've worked on side by side. So if I hit the ellipses for that dimension category, it gives me this pop-up where, again, I could still maybe hop to different dimensions from this pop-up if I wanted to. But in this example, okay, let's pull in just these 2 others that are set up in this demo account. So, it could be forecast 1, 2, 3, whatever you name them, what if, best case, worst case, they'll all be available here. Move over what you may want to see on that report. And then obviously, I can just kind of hop between if I just wanted to see that predictive forecast or something. But now with those selections I've made, if I want that comparison view for January, all I have to do is drag that category back on my workbook. And that actually added it to the wrong place. But the good news is I can hit pivot and get it where I wanted it. Wait a second. Where'd it go? All right. Well, that actually didn't work. I'm not sure why. That should have 2 other columns here with those 2 other selections I just made. This is the first time I'm using this demo account for this particular demo, so bear with me. They're doing maintenance on my main one. But normally that would have both of those other scenarios I selected right here side by side. What's cool about this, and I could still, I could filter by course, by location, department, all that good stuff, even currency and things like that. But as you get familiar with the nomenclature of your dimensionality, you don't even really have to leverage these drop-down menus. Like I could just, hopefully this will work, right? I'll copy B into column D, and let's just type the forecast and see if that works to bring it in. Should. Okay, maybe that's why I didn't map, because there's no values for those scenarios I picked. But you get the idea, right? Even if I wanted to type in next fiscal year and let's bring in last month instead, I can just type in what you want to see, hit refresh. That actually works on your chart of account codes as well. So let me just kind of keep only on an arbitrary selection so I'm not scrolling. But let's say for whatever reason I want to duplicate our training expense line item at the bottom. I just type in that account code 6260, hit refresh, and we'll see a duplicate training expense account at the bottom. So overall, you can create these hey, I'm gonna need this next month, just set it up so that when you log back in, click refresh, it'll update in real time, right? Or you can kind of do all this work where you're kind of slicing and dicing on the fly, and maybe create some Excel-based visuals that'll refresh as I click the refresh button. Or again, maybe I want to drill through on our actuals here, or maybe I want to adjust our plan from a planning form and just click submit data when I'm done. Other cool ease of use tools, say this is kind of like a random report, right? Just January, a couple scenarios, but maybe I created this. I need this for a couple other courses as well, so I can hit burst cascade, which is essentially burst reporting. I want to open all those reports up in the same workbook. And this is actually because I've already done some pre-selecting. It's let me know, hey, you click OK, we're going to spit this same report out into 108 different perspectives across 108 different sheets. So I'm not going to do that because it would take a minute or 2 to spin it all out. But if you ever create a nice report that, hey, this is great for this course, I need this for a couple other courses as well, right? You can kind of just pick the ones you need it for. It'll tell you how many different sheets it'll spit out with all those different perspectives in one file for you. So again, I know we're up on time, but that was just kind of a quick teaser for Smart View. I think there's a lot of time savings for creating new analytical views of the data in here. And again, completely included with licensing. So
Cool. Yeah, that's a great tool.
And
yeah.
Sean, just to reiterate again too, anything that's done here in the Smart View in Excel, as soon as you save it syncs it into planning budgeting, right?
Yep.
Yes, you
Yep.
did.
So if
Okay.
I had
You might
like
have already
our
said that. I just want to reiterate again because
Yeah.
that's the coolest part, right? Is if you feel
Mhm.
more comfortable working in Excel, you could do that, and it's updating the main database anyway, right?
Yeah.
If you like to work inside the planning and budgeting module, then you could do that instead. But some people just feel better in Excel and have more confidence and whatever, so it extends it out. So
Yeah, that's a good point, Dennis. And like maybe for you, Tanner, like if you want us to like your new course model that you have built in Excel, we can essentially, as part of implementation, like help recreate that with the connectivity essentially. So,
Mhm.
you can still just do simple data entry in that model, click submit data when you're done, and it's going to flow through to all the other aspects of the financial forecast. So, we don't have to do that, right? If you want to get rid of that model, we can definitely probably make it more efficient. But if you're like really love it and you built it yourself and don't want to let it go, you could just connect it to the cloud and have some ease of use there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So to view, not necessarily, I guess, well, yeah, Smart View. So we could, in theory, get our budget template to whatever point we wanted to, and then have it export to Excel in this format. If we send it to someone that doesn't have a license and they change stuff and send it back to us, does it disconnect and then reconnect, or how does that work?
That's a good question. That actually is a good workaround for avoiding getting user licenses for those folks that maybe like, just a couple times a year they do some
Yeah.
minor adjustments. They can still do that and send it to you as like a flat file in Excel. And then when
Yep.
you receive it, like you're connected, you just kind of click submit data on their behalf.
Yeah.
We do have customers that'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean that's like I don't sit here and budget for 60 golf courses, right? We provide them their historical information and their budget template. We send it to the general manager. He sits down with their food and beverage manager, golf course superintendent, head pro, and
Yep.
they kind of create their own budget. They send it back to us and we import it into our accounting software. So,
Okay.
I'm sure licenses aren't cheap. There's no way we could purchase 60 licenses to do all that, right? So
Yeah, that's fair. Licenses are about, I think they're like 1,200 a year per user.
okay. Okay. That's more reasonable than I thought, but yeah, it's still,
Yeah.
we'd have 60 users at minimum plus us.
Yeah, it adds up quick. I get it. Yeah.
Okay. That sounds good. So, but yeah, getting 10 of those is much more feasible than 70 or 80. So, okay, that sounds good. That's good. It's good to know.
Yep. Yeah, and the base platform cost is about 20K per year, and then just
Okay.
that user account on top of that. There is also an implementation fee that's typically around 1x of that annual cost. But we can,
Right.
Mac will give more detail there.